So this young man actually was able to generate enough power to propel himself up and then spin and kick him in the face. How do you even do like Francis Ngannou actually said, you watch something like that and you kind of think like, I'm gonna go work on it in the gym and realize I don't want to hurt myself, because you get excited and go, hey, imitation is the greatest form of flattery, but nobody's doing what Joaquin Buckley did last weekend. That is the only time, and I'm confident saying that will be the only time in UFC history you'll ever see anything like that happen.
To be honest, I'm gonna have to disagree with DC here for many different reasons. Number one, this isn't the craziest thing we've ever seen before. I mean, it could be up there 100%, but we've seen crazy stuff in the past as well. Look at Yair Rodriguez, look at Mark Giacchese. We see some crazy stuff in the past, but every single time we see something crazy, everybody always says, we're never gonna see something like this ever again. But then 5 years later, we see something even crazier and that same narrative gets played again. I think people who say that, people like DC, are just trying to create excitement, which is absolutely nothing wrong. I'm actually all in favor for DC to say stuff like this, because when we see it again, it's going to be even more surprising and more exciting to witness. But we're going to see stuff like this in the future, 100%. There was a point in time where high kicks, just high kicks, were thought of as something crazy that doesn't work. But then we see Pete Williams knock out Mark Coleman with a head kick. Everybody loses their mind. You know, it was just a generic, not even a perfect form of head kick, and everybody lost it when Pete Williams knocked out the former heavyweight champion. But after that, head kicks were normal. GSP sends Matt Hughes flying across the cage with a spinning back kick. Everybody thought it was crazy. It became a normal technique afterward. Move forward, Anderson Silva lands the front kick on Vitor Belfort. Everybody lost it, and now it's a normal technique. Then we see Edson Barboza wheel kick Terry Adam. Again, everybody lost it, and now it's a normal technique. This is just what happens in MMA. Whenever you see a crazy technique and it works and lands and knocks out the opponent, everybody in MMA starts working on it and it becomes a normal technique. This is just how the evolution of martial arts goes in all different sports and all different arts. We're going to see more jumping back kicks to the face. We're going to see more of what Uriah Hall did to Gegard Mousasi, which is a very similar technique, almost the exact same, to be honest. We're going to see more two-touch kicks that Mark Giacchese displayed. We're going to see this stuff Yair Rodriguez throws out there if he gets a highlight reel knockout, like his hopping switch kick to the face of Andre Fili, but the somersault kicks, all the different spinning techniques that Yair Rodriguez throws. We're going to see more of that stuff that stems from the more flashy martial arts. I mean, look what Raymond Daniels is doing at MMA now after he crossed over from kickboxing. He's throwing out techniques that the usual MMA fan has never seen before. But when you go into Shotokan and Kempo Karate and Taekwondo and all these other more traditional martial arts, you see these kind of techniques get displayed all of the time, man, all of the time. And it seems like in MMA, specifically the Taekwondo techniques, are being used more than any other of the traditional martial arts. And this is a big reason why I have to disagree with DC. What are the martial arts you learn in quote-unquote MMA gyms across the United States? Boxing, Muay Thai, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Sometimes wrestling. Wrestling usually comes from school, you know, middle school, high school, college. That's where you usually learn wrestling. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing. Those are the three martial arts you learn at almost every single MMA gym. They are pretty much the basics of MMA. The basics of Muay Thai, the basics of boxing, and the basics of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu are the basics of MMA. That is what you generally learn across every gym in the United States, probably even the world. And in the United States, you generally learn wrestling when you're a kid. That is what is the norm when you look at the UFC. The best fighters in the world, they are just generally displaying the basics of MMA at the highest level, right? You do see sometimes a Lyoto Machida. You do see sometimes a Yair Rodriguez come onto the scene and show something a little bit different, but it's not the norm. When Taekwondo, when karate, and all the forms of martial arts that was deemed as quote-unquote ineffective, when they get mixed into MMA, when they get mixed into gyms across the world, that is when you're going to see these techniques be a lot more normal. And the reason why those traditional martial arts did not work early on in the UFC is because you need another base. You need something with those traditional martial arts to make them work, right? When you have Taekwondo by itself, when you have karate by itself, it's extremely hard to be effective with it because you have so many holes. The sport that they come from have so many restrictions. For example, in Taekwondo, you can't throw leg kicks, and the focus of punching is minuscule compared to the kicks. Because of that, Muay Thai fighters and people who throw kicks at the legs and boxers and kickboxers, they generally exploit the Taekwondo those weaknesses. But when you mix something like Taekwondo with Muay Thai and let's say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, now you got a phenom on your hands who could throw the most dangerous kicks a human body can throw while covering its weaknesses due to the background of different martial arts. The leg kicking defense, the base on the feet, the clinch work of Muay Thai. In case someone catches one of your kicks when you're throwing something flashy to the head, you can always drop to your back, get in your guard. Very similar to what Ryan Hall always does. He throws crazy kicks on the feet, people want to catch him, and he falls to his back. They don't want to engage him on the ground, so they just let him stand up again, and the kicking routine goes on over and over again. That is why we're going to see more of this stuff in the future. It won't be in the immediate future, but it's definitely going to be a slow process, a slow progression in the evolution of MMA. 100%. We've seen it in the past before, it's even going on now, it's 100% going to go on in the future. Look how different the footwork is now in MMA. Everybody used to be plodding back in the day, everybody used to stand in front of each other. Now, everybody's moving around using much more advanced level of footwork. Fighters' stances have completely changed. Flashy techniques are a lot more normal than ever before. I mean, it took Israel Adesanya to showcase perfect feinting. Feints were rarely used effectively in MMA up until now, and we're just talking about feints. Yet we're not going to see flashy techniques ever again? I don't think so, man. Again, it's not going to be next year. We're going to see everything crazy start showing up out of nowhere. But my prediction is probably 10 to 20 years from now, we're going to see some crazy quote-unquote ninja stuff all over the UFC. Like, imagine if someone knocked out Matt Hughes in his prime with a spinning hook kick to the head. That would be unthinkable back then. Very interesting from DC. I do like his excitement, but I do think he's a bit wrong on this. People do have to remember that DC is an old school wrestler. He doesn't come from the traditional martial arts. He's not used to seeing this kind of stuff. He's not used to throwing this kind of stuff, which is why when he said he threw one at Josh Barnett, it didn't even come close, right? Because he's never really worked on it that much before. You know, if you see someone like a Raymond Daniels come into MMA who's over 40 years old and he's doing these techniques effortlessly, it just depends what your background is in, right? DC has wrestled his whole life and he worked on his boxing tremendously. Without any background in some of these more traditional martial arts, he's not going to be throwing these techniques that well. Buckley has said that he's been working on this technique for a while, and that is the difference. I mean, these younger guys coming to the sport are generally going to be better athletes than your older fighter. Joaquin Buckley is only 26 years old, and he turned 26 this year. He's a very, very young prospect, right? And as time goes on, the human just gets more athletic. This is generally how it goes on, and Joaquin Buckley is nearly half the age of Daniel Cormier and some of these older martial artists. When Buckley's like 42 years old, you're going to see 25-year-olds doing things even crazier than Buckley just did. People that don't normally have a background in these kind of martial arts. Again, like I've said countless times before, Mark Giacchese threw the two-touch spinning back kick where nobody else in the UFC's ever thrown it before. Because he didn't get the knockout with it, the people are more focused on his overhand right that knocked out Teemu Packalén. They skipped over the more impressive kick that he threw that we've never seen before in the UFC, right? If he got the knockout, this kick from Buckley wouldn't have been as crazy because people will say, oh, we've seen it before. But the fact that nobody's saying we've seen it before, they forget what Mark Giacchese previously showed. These young guys are something else, man. And due to all this, I'm probably going to make a video on Instagram. My first video on Instagram might be me throwing this kick at a bag. Probably no one holding my leg because I don't want to kick anybody. So I'm just going to do like a kind of thing where I have my leg up at the bag like someone's holding it and I'll just hop into a spinning back kick to where the head would be. That's going to be really fun.